Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the executive summary of the EID participation meeting of the Swiss Confederation. We had just our usual participation meeting at 4 o'clock. We wrapped up after about 90 minutes, and now I am here with my colleagues Andreas and Michel, and we will provide you with a summary with the main takeaways from this session, so that also people who do not speak German, a little bit French, also get an update on what is going on here in Switzerland. Welcome to everybody. It is a pleasure having you. We have also the chat open, so feel free to ask questions if need be. We could also open the microphone. We want to do that in a, I mean, not that we are particularly formalistic in the usual or normal participation meeting, but here in the executive summary, we want to make it, maybe even a little more laid back. Anyway, let's jump into the session. As always, we record this session and we'll publish it on YouTube for people who are not able to join us now live. The agenda is, first I will provide you with a number of updates from the Swiss Confederation. Mainly also I will give you a brief report on what has happened 2 weeks ago in Davos in the context of the WEF. Then we have 3 presentations overall. The first 2 ones have been provided by external partners. Christoph from Switch and Matteo von SIGPA have been talking. We will give you a summary at a later stage. And then it was Michel who was talking about the trust protocol and our strategy in that context. That's basically what is on the plate today. But let's get right into it. So first of all, where are we in terms of the legislation? It is important to mention, for those who have not heard about that yet, just before Christmas on December the 20th, Friday, the Parliament, both chambers, have adopted the federal law on the EID. So the parliamentary deliberation was finalized. Then in the beginning of January, the law was published in the Federal Bulletin, I think it's called. That is the official organ where, or a medium where all important things coming from the Swiss Confederation are published. With the publication of this law, a time or clock has started. A clock which will take during 100 days. During these 100 days, it is possible to trigger a referendum, meaning a popular vote on this law to actually veto it. That is normal. All federal laws are subject to the so-called facultative referendum. And people who follow Swiss politics may know that a number of groups have decided to try to veto this law. It is absolutely their constitutional right to do so. We from the Swiss Confederation are not going to comment on that, nor that we are happy or unhappy or whatever. We continue to inform on what we are doing. We also answer questions, but we will not confirm or correct statements that are being made currently in the political realm in that respect. That is actually what the next slide would have shown you. So just so that you understand how we deal with this period of time. In addition, I am happy to tell you that obviously the law on its own is not sufficient to actually implement an infrastructure and everything. So the law which provides the general outline of the legal basis, we need in addition to that an ordinance, specifications and so on. And we are currently working on these legal documents, and they will be submitted to a public consultation also and everybody involved or who feels like can opine on this ordinance as well. We believe that this public consultation will be started before the summer holidays. The exact date is not yet clear, since a little bit of fine-tuning is still required. But you will know about it for sure as soon as it is the case. And that is basically the update on the legal front. And with that, I move on, or I hand over to Andreas, who will give you a brief update on where we are in terms of unlinkability and other privacy enhancement mechanisms. Please.
Thanks so much, Rolf. So, yeah, this is related to the technology decision, which was taken by the Swiss Federal Council back in December. The Swiss Federal Council deliberated a long time what the technology of the Swiss trust infrastructure shall be, the initial technology. Obviously, there will be an evolution, and made a decision. And obviously, with that, also certain questions regarding unlinkability were raised. I want to stress that unlinkability and these topics surrounding privacy preservation or privacy enhancement, they're not new to us. It's something we've been dealing with for almost since the inception of the EID program. And we just listed here various steps that the EID program has taken regarding these topics in the last years. Maybe just some highlights is we had a technical advisory circle, which we convened back in 2023. This then created a discussion paper. There was an informal consultation on that with about 100 participants. Then there was an internal administrative consultation, and that then led to the technology decision, which was taken by the Federal Council. Now, what did that technology decision say, especially in regards to unlinkability? So the Federal Council would like the electronic identity to be introduced as quickly, as soon as possible. And the Federal Council would also like the electronic identity to be unlinkable as quickly as possible. But it might happen in a second phase, because a lot of use cases, especially governmental use cases which rely on digital identity, they are looking for a direct identification of a subject. When we speak about medicinal records, or also the the governmental login system, AGov in Switzerland, I am clearly identifying the subject of an electronic ID or a digital identity, and unlinkability becomes secondary in that step. But with this technology decision that the Federal Council took, dedicated funds and team resources from our EID program were used or defined to drive forward this topic of unlinkability. Now, just really quickly, and there's also a blog post on this topic on our website with the link in the slides. What is unlinkability? Well, it's basically referring to the impossibility or how hard it is to link different transactions carried out by an EID holder. Or on the other side, if we turn it around, how easy is it for verifiers to track and profile a user who is identifying or presenting their electronic identity. And this is relevant within one use case of verification, so potentially can a verifier identify the same holder again and again, but is also relevant over various use cases. For instance, if verifiers are colluding with each other without consent by the user, there also unlinkability would be a means to address this. It's also important to stress that in Switzerland, data protection law already has a certain degree of protection against this practice, especially if there is no explicit consent by the user. But obviously, it's even better if it's solved technically than if we have to rely on legal means to address this topic. Now, the team which is formed to tackle unlinkability is also working on additional topics. These are observability, so how easy is it for the provider of the infrastructure, the Federal Office of Information Technology, to observe who is using the infrastructure when and how. We know, for instance, already now that it's not possible to identify which EID or digital identity is being verified by a verifier. That is mitigated by the technology that we use. But nonetheless, it's important to dive even deeper into that topic and to see if there are further mechanisms which can come to play to mitigate this observability. Then there's the deniability. Can I, as a holder, after I've presented my electronic identity, also gain a certain degree of deniability that it was me in case data leaks from a verifier? That's something we want to dive into. Then also purpose limitation. How can we limit data from spreading? So either by, for instance, additionally encrypting it, so only the verifier which got this data can decrypt and read this data, or also ensuring really strict purpose-related data release or a binding from data to a purpose on a technical level. And then obviously the topic which the whole internet is dealing with at the moment, post-quantum cryptography. There we also have questions. How does that relate to A, digital identity itself, but also then B, the trust infrastructure which the Swiss Confederation is running? And also, I think it's worth delving into if unlinkability is still relevant in the post-quantum cryptography age, or if the questions we will be facing or talking about will be completely different once we enter this new scenario. So those are the additional topics we're dealing with. And with that, and I think this is also great if we have an international group here watching us, we would like to open a discussion. It's really important for the EID program to continue the great collaboration we've already had with the SSI community on this topic. And we've opened a GitHub thread where you can help us and bring in ideas and so forth. You see some questions here that we are asking you to answer. Are these the right topics? Are there people we should speak to? Did we forget something? It's a call to participation. Join us on GitHub and help us drive this topic forward for Switzerland, but also for all other sovereign states and the digital identity community, which is working on this topic right now. And with that, I hand over or back to Rolf.
Thank you so much. And that is a nice bridge to our next topic, because as Andreas mentioned, we do it for Switzerland, obviously. We are working on unlinkability, but since all our infrastructure will be open source, other actors can learn and use what we have produced, so it would not be a lost effort in that sense. And when we talk about open source, public beta is a topic that is worth mentioning. Public beta will be our next sandbox, which we intend to launch still this quarter. A little bit later, the exact date is not yet decided, but I am very confident that it will be before the end of March. And in that context, I can simply mention that the majority of the source code required to run this trust infrastructure is already available on GitHub. The wallet has been published already last year, still at the last participation meeting. By now, also all the different elements required for the registries are available. What is still missing, but it will come soon, is the issuer agent and the verifier agent. And we hope that this test environment will be used by many actors, Swiss actors, but also international actors. There is no limitation in terms of who could actually play around on public beta. So get ready. You will hear more about it via our newsletter and obviously in our participation meetings. That is for the public beta. Then a very brief update on the EID unit. This is a organization within the Federal Office of Justice, which will be responsible for the governance of this trust infrastructure. We have started our work, I think quite successfully. There's not really much more that I can say, but I would like to let you know already that we will publish 3 additional positions. We are looking for more resources, and who knows, maybe one of you would like to apply for one or the other post. I am not yet quite clear when we will publish these positions, but as a heads up, we wanted to mention that to you already now. These are the main updates from the EID program. Now I would like to quickly give you also an update or a little report on the Open Wallet Forum high-level panel meeting which took place in Davos in the context of the WEF, I believe 3 weeks ago. There our Minister Beat Jans was the host of this event. He opened it with a statement. I will just get back to that. But the event was co-organized with the International Telecommunications Union, UN sub-agency, and also the Linux Foundation / Open Wallet Foundation. This organization is not represented here on this picture. The gentleman to the left, Soli Malazi, is the Minister for Digital Technologies and Communications of South Africa. Why South Africa is so important? I mean, obviously it is an important country anyway, but this year South Africa has the presidency of the G20 group, and it is the intention of South Africa to put wallets and digital public infrastructure in general on the agenda of the G20 group, and that is why he joined our event, and why we are very happy that we will get also on the level of G20 quite some attention. The welcome remarks by our Federal Councillor are published on our blog. If you would like to read the whole speech, I would like just to highlight that he not only was talking about technical issues and whatever, and interoperability and what have not, but that our work really should be oriented by the principles of democracy, the rule of law, and human rights, and that these principles should, for example, also be then translated into open hardware elements when it comes to smartphones, in particular with regard to crypto processors, because unlinkability and non-observability and whatever are all nice features, but if in the end of the day the private key is not really secure, then the whole thing is a little bit pointless. And obviously this is not something that Switzerland can do on its own. That is why we are engaging in these international contexts. The same for open source, the open source approach, and that the collaboration in a multilateral and multi-stakeholder fashion is required. These topics have then been discussed on 2 panels. And I think it's noteworthy to see who was present in these on these panels. I think it was almost historic moment that so many high-level people have been joining the discussion of interoperability, open standards, be it from other UN agencies, the G20, but also important representatives of the hardware sector like Samsung and Huawei, or Visa, the academia, and so on. On the second panel, it was discussed what the role of standards is in this whole context, and obviously it is absolutely fundamental. I don't think that I have to explain that to you, but it was nice to see that both the Secretary General of ISO, the Secretary General of IEC, but also important open source organizations such as the Linux Foundation and the Eclipse Foundation, or other agencies such as the ITU or OpenID Foundation and so on. I mean, it was really a who is who in terms of standardization and basic infrastructure for communication and internet in a broad sense. And all these organizations have been working prior to this high-level meeting in Davos on a call to action. The first bullet point is here on the slide. You can read the whole document by clicking on the link. Although this call to action has not been formally signed by everybody and has no binding force, it is nevertheless an important message, I would say, to the world that here all these different important actors are interested in collaborating together to move interoperability, to move this digital credential, digital assets wallet topic forward. And while a call to action is great, but it's only a call, action shall take place very soon. We are still in the phase of preparing this, although it's considering the scope of the endeavor already rather tight. It is planned to have a Global Digital Trust Conference in summer in Geneva. We expect around 1,700 participants. It will be convened, if everything goes well, not only by Switzerland, but also again by the institutions who were also convening this panel meeting in Davos, so ITU and Linux Foundation. But the idea is really to have an approach of co-organizing this event so that it is not a Swiss event or a ITU event or a Linux event. I mean, all these actors are important, but none of them is more important than the other. And we are working on joining forces with other UN organizations, with the different standard development organizations, open source organizations, and other actors, including NGOs. We will provide you with more information as soon as it is available. And obviously, all these different organizations then will, as co-organizer, also reach out to their communities so that these different communities can come together and work on specific topics together. So that is on the topic of the Davos meeting. And with that, we are getting now to the second part of our participation meeting and the topics, where we've had 3 presentations. And there we will provide you really with a very short summary. The slides can be accessed on GitHub. We don't show you all the slides here. And in some cases it was even presented in English. But it will be the pleasure of Michel to give you a little bit more meat to the bone on these 3 presentations. Please.
Thanks, Rolf. So we had the first presentation by Christoph from Switch. He explained how they had a large federation built about the sector of education, and are now searching for an alternative with OpenID Federation. Then we had a second presentation by Matteo from SIGPA, where he explained the interoperability profiles encounter with the participation at the EWC large-scale pilot for the EU, showed the benefits of having automated testing beds to test out interoperability, which was given to them from the large-scale pilot, and how the new features SDJUT VC with the VCT schemas helps them in the realization of their proof of concept. I will now quickly go over my presentation. So what is a trust protocol and what is the strategy of the Confederation? I will skip over a few things, but the problem we want to solve is that when you receive, for example, a verifiable credential, which is written on it, it comes from the Federal Office of Police. You want to know if it's really the Federal Office of Police that sent that EID to you. So how we wanted to do it, I will quickly show an overview of what most of you people already have seen. So it's the overview of the whole trust infrastructure with verifier, issuer, holder, and the registries. And one special thing that we have in Switzerland is that we have two registries actually. We have a base registry. That's where we centralize cryptographic identifiers. We are using, for example, DIT Web VH for the moment. And we have a trust registry where we represent human trust. So that means that we have something we call trust statements, where we can show, for example, a verified identity which is behind the identificator, or also to show who is legitimate to issue or verify some verifiable credentials. That already said. One special thing also is how it's organized. So the Swiss Confederation will issue those trust statements for verified identities. So if I check onto my smartphone with all my verifiable credentials, the identity will come from the trust registry of the Swiss Confederation. But if it comes to someone else, which doesn't have to do a regulatory task, they can create their own trust registry, which can then say who is legitimate or not to issue or verify those credentials, but it has to link back to the base registry of the Swiss Confederation. So if you want a verified identity, as I said, the actor has to have an identificator in the base registry. For legal persons, you need a national registry number. And for natural person, you will be required to have a Swiss EID for the onboarding. And for the legitimate issuer and verifier, as I said, if you come from the public sector or have to fulfill regulated tasks, you will be part of the trust registry of the Swiss Confederation. And otherwise, you can have a third-party trust registry which for your needs in a sectorial, in your sector. And then quickly over what we choose from a technical point. The first candidates that we had was X509 and OpenID Federation. Both bind an identificator to a public key. X509 in our case was a bit more difficult to adapt. And OpenID Federation has more advanced federation and metadata support, but it's also a very big specification. And what we really liked about OpenID Federation were the trust marks. It's compact. We can represent trust as we wanted to with those, but we had a few pain points like that you don't have an API to download all trust marks about an actor, that if you want to check the validity of trust marks, you have to go back to the trust registry, no description with DIT support, or we would have to create a profile for the additional claims we need in them. And that's why for first implementation, we choose to do our own trust protocol with our own trust statements based on SDJOTs. Those fulfill our requirements, have no delegation mechanism yet, and of course are also not globally accepted. And for that point, we have some potential next steps. So first implementation comes in 2026, but we want to be internationally interoperable with others. So we could either migrate our own specification to a standard organization and develop it further there, or we can invest time in the evolution of OpenID Federation and create sort of a trust mark profile that is convenient with our requirements. But also we can make a deeper analysis about maybe some abstraction that we could go over the trust protocol that we are using right now. That's it. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Michel. I would like to add that I didn't properly introduce you. You are our Innovation Fellow. Michel has joined us about a year ago. For 1 year, it is an innovation program provided by the Confederation overall. and we were very lucky to have you. Thank you so much for all your efforts. We were trying to convince you to stay a little bit longer, not as Innovation Fellow, but as a regular, with a regular position. However, you have opted to continue your journey some other place. We wish you all the luck and hope to stay in touch. But thank you for all your contributions. And with this, basically, we have already provided you with the executive summary that we wanted to provide to you. That was basically the topic of today. Now, I'm just wondering, are there any questions or comments? Feel free also to give a shout out via mic. I breathe once slowly and profoundly to see if there is anything that should be addressed now. Otherwise, I would like to thank you very much for your attention.
We've got one,
Sure.
and it's about if X509 will be accepted in the future. I mean, what happens in the future in this space, I think, is like looking into a crystal ball at the moment. I mean, what the legal basis in Switzerland has is it gives us, or it gives the Federal Council the possibility to give regulatory interoperability with other states or constituencies, and with that, obviously. We also need to challenge technical interoperability with these different systems. X509 might then come to the table, especially if we want to have interoperability with our biggest trade partner, the European Union. But really, that's not a discussion or a question we can answer now. We are obviously open for evolution, but it always has to happen in the future.
Okay, great that we could clear that, at least for the moment being. Are there other questions?
So far,
or
no.
Comments? No? Okay, so then I would like to reiterate our call to participate in our discussion on unlinkability and other privacy enhancement mechanisms. If you would like to contribute, please let us know. The most easy way would be by joining the thread on GitHub. And otherwise, we are looking forward to seeing you or being able to talk to you again, the latest in 1 month, when we will have our next participation meeting on March 6, where we will provide you with an executive summary at 6 p.m. again as well. Otherwise, I wish you now a nice evening and all the best, and see you in a month. Thank you so much.